Hello and welcome to this webinar series on real-time decision making. Today we're featuring Actian X, Actian's hybrid database. And I'm Pradeep Banat. I'm a Director of Product Marketing here at Actian. I'm joined today by Greg Hale, who is a Solution Director in our Customer Success and Professional Services organization.
Good
Hello,
morning.
Greg.
Good morning.
And I'm also joined by Alex Hanshaw, our Director of Engineering based out of the UK.
Morning, Pradeep.
Alex is our technical expert in Actian X. So just a couple of housekeeping items. The presentation is being recorded and you'll get a recording of it after the event to share with your colleagues who couldn't make it today. And we'll also send you a PDF of the slides so you won't have to take too many notes. If you'd like to ask us questions during the presentation, please feel free to do so using the Q&A function. If you have technical difficulties and you can't see our presentation or hear any of us, just let us know using the chat feature. For those of you who aren't familiar with Actian, we've been around originally as Ingress around 30 years and been acquired by a couple of companies, spun off eventually about 12 years ago by Computer Associates as Actian. And over the years, we've acquired various database technologies, and today we specialize in hybrid solutions, both hybrid OLTP analytics and hybrid cloud data warehousing. We specialize in mission-critical data management, so we have several database technologies to help with that. And we also have a world-class enterprise data integration solution for connecting all the databases to your database or data warehouse. Moving on. So Actian, a little bit, we've been around so long, we have picked up a lot of customers. We have 3,000 global customers, 95% plus customer satisfaction rating for our support services. We have around 53 patents. The ones we're proudest of are performance related. And I'll talk to some of those as I present. And we're used by 24 of the Fortune 100 companies. You can see the logos of some of our leading customers at the bottom of the screen. Last year we were acquired by 80% acquired by HCL and 20% acquired by Sumiro Equity. We're still an independent company, but we have backing of a large parent today. So a little bit about data management. Historically, IT used to be focused, it used to be the source of most of the spend in data management. I used to work in data centers at companies like British Telecom back in the 80s, and when a CPU used to cost £1 million. And so that was always the center of everyone's focus for IT. In the 2000s, infrastructure was still very important. Systems were beginning to get virtualized, and that's where most of IT spend went. In the 2010s, we saw an evolution to get more of a focus on applications. Infrastructure became more commoditized. And today, and I think a long time into the future, it's all going to be all about the data. People are seeing that the data they have about their customers and their business is what really makes up the business. It's their core competence, and some of them even sell that information to other parties. So data is more than just records keeping these days. So companies that use data, according to Bain Research, they did a big data organizational survey a little while ago. And what they concluded was that organizations that use analytics to make decisions are 2 times more likely to have top quartile financial performance. They're 5 times more likely to make decisions faster than the competition, so making them more competitive. And they're more likely, 3 times more likely to execute those decisions as intended. They also make a lot more use of analytics in decision making than the typical organization. So the way people do reporting and BI analytics or data visualization today is to use multiple databases. So they might have transactional systems, OLTP systems running on legacy systems like mainframes or database appliances in some cases. And then they typically move that data using an ETL process to a machine where an analytic application can run against that to produce reports. And they don't always feed back the data into the original database. So they lose a bit of linkage in improving the performance of the organization. Today, companies are a lot more closed loop, as shown on the right of the presentation. They still have the same transactional systems they used to have, but they try and put the analytics application as close to those transactional systems as possible, minimizing the ETL. And a lot of people will use an appliance model to do that. And they try and feed back operational insights they glean from the analytic data back into the OLTP system to improve operations in real time. So, in the old days, everyone ran their applications during the day, and at night they'd do a batch update because the computers are so expensive. And basically operate on yesterday's data. And a lot of systems these days still do that. One kind of system that mimics that is the world of OLAP, where people will pre-compute all their previous days' data into cubes, so people can, the end users can have easy access to fast analytics, but they'll always be dated. So the three typical approaches are, as I said, batch updates overnight typically. Monolithic approaches, which is the appliance approach, where you try and put your analytics database inside the same physical machine as your transactional database. Examples of those are, in this example, an engineered system from Oracle that they call Oracle Exadata. Teradata is one of the first database engines, and Netezza, now owned by IBM, is another great example of that. And these kind of systems are pretty hard to upgrade. They get really expensive because you're tied into a particular architecture. So people are tending to move away the analytics from those kind of boxes and use the cloud a little bit more because it offers pay-as-you-go economics and more elasticity in the amount of compute you pay for. So you can basically enlarge and shrink systems as you need them, to save money and match your business usage patterns. And another approach is to bolt on a analytics process to your transactional application. SAP HANA at the bottom of the slide is a good example of that. So you have your transactional ERP system, for example, in SAP. If you want to do reporting, you create an SAP data warehouse. And if that data warehouse isn't too performant, which it typically isn't, you will resort to a columnar approach using SAP HANA, which improves performance a little bit. So introducing Actian X, which is the subject of this webinar. Actian X is what we call a hybrid OLTP and analytics database. And on the picture on the right shows you what we mean by that. It's a standard relational database based on Ingress, so an enterprise-grade, rock-solid row-based database, and that provides you standard relational SQL access. And what Actian has done is taken a very fast columnar database, which is the fastest database on the planet as far as I can tell, called Actian Vector, and made that same engine available inside the Actian X database. The Vector engine uses columnar processing, so it's specialized for analytic processing where you don't want to report on the whole row of data. You may have 100 fields in a table, and you may only want to be reporting on 5 columns. It makes no sense to run those reports on that row because you'd have to read the across the whole row to get all your data. It's better to use a columnar approach, and Actian's columnar system is second generation columnar, so it can handle updates really well, and it's optimized. It optimizes memory really well to make it so fast. And I'll explain some of those features as we move on. So Actian is provided Vector with an enterprise class security and manageability features. Thanks to what we've learned with Actian X over the years and Ingress. We provide connectivity to non-Actian databases and other Actian databases. Actian X is also very powerful in the geospatial space. So if you have a lot of map coordinates you have to deal with, it's really strong in that area. So people like, ARCSA, for example, would work really well on Actian X. It's got a flexible distributed database capability. What we mean by that is it's based on Ingress Star, which was developed a long time ago. We basically can connect multiple databases that are geographically dispersed, or even multiple databases in the same data center over a high-speed network, and create a virtual single database for your applications to access the data as if it was all locally in a single database. We can grow analytics out of a single box into multiple machines. So when you outgrow a single box running Actian X, you can basically move the data using our HVR capability to another Actian X instance sitting close to it or far away, or into a dedicated analytics database like Actian Vector, which can run on an SMP or an MPP system on Hadoop locally, or even in the cloud as a managed service with Actian Avalanche, which I'll talk about in a second. Actian X runs today on standard Linux and Windows environments, and has a lot of great API support for standard 3GL applications, JSON, and support for BI tools like Click, Looker, etc. So all the popular front-end applications that you use today for analytics will work with Actian X. In terms of how Actian X works, as I said, at the top of the screen, you can see, we'll work with all your existing OLTP applications, your hybrid applications that make use of structured and unstructured data, like images, and your analytics applications using BI dashboards. It uses Actian Vector, which is by far the fastest database there is. I was speaking to Alex just recently before the call, and he's telling us one of our Irish customers had reports that took 19 hours to run in Actian before they used Actian X. Now with the reporting engine inside Actian X, it's down to 6 minutes. It's amazing. So Ingress Connect gives you distributed database capability. We have an enterprise monitoring appliance, so we have enterprise-grade monitoring capabilities. So IT can basically manage a farm of instances, and we also offer data cloud backup, which will basically back up your database securely to the cloud. That gives you disaster recovery capability. So a little bit about the, I think the unique differentiator for Actian X over standard relational databases is the inclusion of the vectorized columnar engine. Let me describe vector processing briefly. So with vector processing, let me contrast it to a traditional row by row approach first. So as you can see, standard relational database will process a single row and then do a context switch in the CPU, and then process the next row, do another context switch, etc. And this is not really the most efficient way to process a lot of database elements or rows. So what we can do with Avalanche or Vector or the Actian X engine for analytics is to process an array at a time. The way we do that, an array might consist of 1,000 elements, and we can compress that data. It's a single data type, so we can compress it very efficiently. And then we can we generally run it inside CPU cache, not just in RAM memory, so it's accessed very fast, and just decompress it just moments before we process it. And we use a capability that Intel added to all their commodity processors. Any 64-bit Intel processor has this capability, is vector processing instruction set. And one of those instructions lets you use SMID technology, which lets a single instruction access multiple memories across every core in the system. So if you have a 64-way SMP system, you can basically load up all the registers in all those 64 cores with a single array of data, which might be 1,000 elements, and have a single CPU instruction process all of them in one instruction cycle. So that's basically 1,000 elements in a single cycle, and that's really the core reason why the X100 or the vector engine inside Actian X is so fast. That's not the only reason it's fast. It's a combination of multiple features. One is taking advantage of the large L1, L2 on-chip memory processors have these days. Today you can buy a processor with 12 megabytes of L1, L2 cache. That used to be only available on things like Spark servers 10 years ago. It's pretty amazing that you can get that on a commodity system these days. It's a second generation columnar database. So what that means is we can handle singleton updates really efficiently. So if you need to do reporting on operational data as it changes, we can do that in a patented fast way. As I mentioned, we use smart compression because we have different compression algorithms for every column of data you have. We actually analyze the cardinality of the data as well as the data type to decide which compression algorithm to use. We have auto indexes. So imagine if you're doing a full table scan, and we're only looking for a certain range of data. Every page that we scan has a high watermark and a low watermark, and we can basically skip pages that aren't relevant really quickly. So that gives you great speed even for really inefficient queries like full table scans. In terms of what people use high-speed analytics for, in the manufacturing side, it would be improving product. In sales, retail, it would be improving sales. Banking, you really want a 360 view of your customer. That's the typical customer insights application. Financial services and telcos care about the most. In marketing, we also want to know every interaction of a client might have had, a visitor to our website, all the way through to becoming a customer. For risk and fraud and analytics, you need to know when someone's trying to break a system in real time and not the next day. And for regulatory compliance and forecasting, you need the fastest engine you can get as well to make sure you're not you're staying compliant with those regulations. And moving on. So let me give you an example of a couple of customers. Here we have the University of Oxford Clinical Trials Service Unit, CTSU. What they do is use the row-based side of Actian X to store clinical research data. And then when they want to do analysis on that, they create X100 columns, which are the columnar database engine columns that allows them to do high-speed analytics. CTSU is really interesting because the research they collect and collate or curate even, they sell to other research organizations around the world. So someone who's doing epidemiology, COVID research, for example, would subscribe to the Oxford University database, and they're able to scale their analytics out to match the number of organizations accessing it. Another example is the revenue service in Ireland. They built their entire infrastructure on Ingress, and they basically use a combination of Ingress and Vector to do their reporting. And they told us recently about the way their systems used to be. They typically took payment 7 days to get recorded and be available to the tax inspectors. So whenever they used to go and do audit a farm, for example, they would show up and the farmer would say, I've already sent the check, I've made this payment, what are you talking about? And tell them to go away. And now now they can basically do that in real time with the Actian infrastructure. And because of that, they've improved their tax collections by 140 million euros a year. They basically, the whole new PAYE system is built on Actian databases. They also have all their customs transactions go through an Actian database, and they're very happy with the high availability the English database offers them. They make heavy use of HVR, which is a third-party system we sell directly. HVR stands for high volume. It basically high volume movement of data replication. It's a CDC-based approach, so they scrape the logs and move the data to multiple databases, doing some transformation as they go. Another example of a company that's built their infrastructure on Actian technology is HSS Hire, which basically does all their order management at the counter for their retail outlets using an Ingress database. And they use Actian Vector and a little bit of Actian X for reporting across their 265 stores. And a really interesting use case for me is Luluthsa, which does their route planning using Actian databases. They have a master node peer-to-peer relationship between the databases. They use HVR to do their replication to the various data stores. And one particular example is where they've got a peer-to-peer relationship with two databases that are being written to by different systems or different sets of users. And HVR basically handles all the conflicts between those two data sources, basically giving priority to the most recent transaction. So with that, I'll hand over to Greg to tell us a little bit about our customer success and services organization.
Thank you, Pradeep, and good morning, attendees. My name is Greg Hale. I'm a Solution Director in CS and PS, Customer Services and Professional Services. A little bit of a mouthful. I've got over 20 years experience in data management, warehousing and BI, and I've worked for a number of different systems integrators and product vendors over the years and delivered data solutions in multiple vertical industries. That's me. So a little bit about customer success and professional services. So my team is here to ensure customers are successful by providing technical guidance and services, mainly in Actian products. And the intent is to accelerate customer adoption and shorten time to value. So we provide access for our customers to product engineers who have the deep technical product knowledge, should the need be there. So that'd be in Alex's team. And they continue to develop and improve our products so we can be well aware of the latest innovations they're developing. We do provide advisory services as well, so we can advise our customers on where the market's going and possibly how we can help them. But we do partner with other SIs where projects demand more resources. So HCL owns a majority shareholding in Actian, and we do have a strong relationship with them, but it doesn't preclude us working with other SIs should we need to. Could I have the next slide, please? Pretty. Back one slide, sorry. Thank you. So we have three distinct service groupings. The first one is Actian Insight, and the focus there is on helping customers make the correct technology decisions and build a roadmap for the path forward. So they're focused particularly on assessment. We have a health check on there, which is a general health check on the state of your data management or potentially your BI reporting solutions. So we can provide an assessment, for instance, on migration, which would tell you how easy it would be to migrate to Actian X, and we can tell you some of the gotchas we've had in the past. The next offering area is the success, and that's really around maintaining success where you already have our products. And we provide technical product expertise to ensure optimal use of our technology. You can read these things for yourself. We'll send the slides out later. And the final one is around realization. So that's where we package up product and services to ensure successful delivery of a project, utilizing our data platforms. And these vary from sort of cloud and on-premise foundation offerings, which is something that's a relatively small line of business scale data platform with simple reporting needs, to something that's much more complex, that has a lot of dependencies, a complex data model, may require a fair bit of re-engineering, and will definitely need a phased implementation approach. So we can provide resources to help and assist throughout that journey. So one thing to note is that we're not a professional services company, in that we don't rely on services revenue ourselves. Our services are here purely to ensure our customers are successful with our products. Could I have the next slide, please, Pradeep? So migrating an existing OLT database to a new platform is a daunting task. And through successful migrations in the past, we've formulated best practices and defined those in our own migration methodology. And we have a supporting migration tool, which we call Actian Assist, which we've been developing over a number of years, and I'll discuss that briefly later. So we have a migration practice that's dedicated to migrating to our platforms from other service providers, technology providers. And some of the best practices are shown on the slide. I'll just highlight some of these. So probably the most important thing is making sure you understand who your stakeholders are if you're going to do a change of data platform, and what they're expecting in terms of outcome. Because if you miss delivering the required outcome, or the project plan misses vital tasks, the project won't be successful. So we thoroughly recommend that you spend time identifying your stakeholders and making sure you know what they want. Building a sound business case is critical, and you need to make sure you measure the complete TCO, total cost of ownership, and that should include licensing, maintenance, resources, because we believe that our databases do not need as much DBA resources as our competition. You may reduce hardware. For instance, the X100 engine may mean you can remove some operational reporting hardware elsewhere, as well as the cost of doing the migration itself. You also have to look at other benefits you may realize. So if you remove reporting data stores, you may reduce cost. If you can report more quickly, you may get business value out of that. So the business case is fundamental, and you should regularly measure and monitor it throughout the project journey. We think you should do a phased approach to reduce risks, because implementing a new technology and replumbing makes people nervous, and everyone's nervous of change. So we would recommend choosing a quick win area and implement something as quickly as possible and learn from any mistakes. And if you're successful, which we hope you would be, and we'd hope you to be successful, you'll get stakeholder buy-in, and that's key. We think you should use the migration as an opportunity to do some housekeeping, eliminate data you don't need. Although we do provide a tool, you need to realize that tools cannot automate everything that needs to be done. they all have their own limitations. Any tool from any vendor will have its limitations. So you need to understand those limitations and plan how you do anything that's not covered by the tool. That'll be manual tasks. That there is no silver bullet in my experience. There will always be some level of manual work, and understanding that and estimating that is fundamental. Performance, one of the key differentiators for us is performance, and it's one of the key non-functional requirements for success often. So make sure you have a clear baseline and know how you're going to measure it, be that load, concurrency, volumes, query throughput, and make sure you undertake an accurate and fair comparison between the old solution and the new solution based on Actian X. You need to have a rollback plan in case of errors. Sometimes the unexpected does hit you. I once had some unscheduled building maintenance during a migration that took the power out. So we had to roll back and do it again. That can happen. And lastly, you need to test. Always ensure that data is technically reconciled and ensure all upstream and downstream systems integrations work, and run reports to prove outputs are the same. We typically recommend customers do a phase of parallel running to ensure the outputs are correct and the same from old and new. Next slide, please. Pradeep. So Actian's built a migration assistance tool over the years, and it's called Actian Assists, and it enables us to assess a database for migration and automate as much of the migration as we can. It interrogates database objects and evaluates how much you can automatically migrate of the schema, the data types, the stored procedures, user-defined functions, constraints, indexes, and data. And it provides a list of what it cannot migrate to allow a user to manually intervene, such as badly formed SQL. We have used the tool to perform numerous migrations in the past, and we find it typically automates about 90 to 95% of inputs received. Now, obviously, that depends on different databases and whether there are functions that are available or comparable functions available in different databases. Every database is slightly different, and the versions are slightly different. So Migration Assist supports a number of sources. We increase those as we work on more, and currently we support Oracle, Postgres, MS SQL, Sybase IQ, Netezza, and Teradata, and we're looking at putting Snowflake in as well. So that's a brief overview of customer success and PS, and we welcome the opportunity to perform a migration assessment to Actian X from any other database platform. Thank you, Pradeep.
Thank you, Greg. So that's the end of our presentation portion of the webinar. And Alex has been reviewing your questions as we've been presenting. Just a quick reminder that if you have any questions, you can always email us directly at asa@actian.com. Alex, how are the questions looking?
There was no open questions.
Okay, so that's great. So we answered all the questions as we went. So we conclude there. Thanks everyone for joining, and hopefully you'll visit us for more webinars in the future. If you'd like to learn more about Actian, just visit actian.com, and you'll see promotions like 50% off your Snowflake bill. With that, we'll conclude. Thanks very much.
Have a great day, everyone.